How do you acquire the interest of the female species?
You mean personally? Sharp suits, man. You know, a little hygiene is not such a bad thing. As a start, decent haircut, certain amount of cleanliness. That's a good thing. What do women look for? Depends on the wisdom of the woman, obviously. But, well, it does because, narcissists can fool naive women. That's why narcissists propagate, by the way. And we know this because narcissistic psychopaths, young women are more likely to fall for narcissistic psychopaths. And the reason for that is they can't tell them from competent men. Because narcissistic psychopaths imitate competence. And that's their niche. And so they have a confidence that isn't justified by their ability. But the women check out the confidence as a marker of ability, and the falsely confident can fool them, especially if they're young and naive. And so, generally what women want is something like confident, productive generosity, fundamentally. And so, if that's allied with physical attractiveness and a sense of humor and, the sorts of features that a man would also look for in a woman, so much the better. But your basic bet, and my suspicions are the guy who answered this question is probably young. First of all, no one likes young men, so if women don't like you, it's like, well, that's par for the course. Who likes young men? No one. Why? Well, they're basically troublesome and useless, and so that's why. So cross-culturally, women like men who are about 4 years older than them. And the reason for that is, women are more vulnerable on the sexual front, and they have to make themselves even more vulnerable if they have children, especially when the children are infants. And so they're looking for guys who are competent enough to be able to take care of themselves, at least, and then have enough left over for a wife and a dependent child. And not exactly because the wife wants to be taken care of, because it isn't exactly like women want to be taken care of. It's more a reciprocal relationship. But if a woman has a dependent child, then both of them have to be taken care of, especially when the child's an infant. And so women tilt the scales toward assessment of men on the grounds of their competent generosity. And the reason, and men might be annoyed about that, but I would say, well, if you were a woman, you'd do the same thing. And you know how I know that? It's because women are female humans. And so if you were a woman, you'd be just like a woman. So, because that's what a woman is, right? So you can't blame women. It's like, clue in there, buddy. If all women don't like you, it's you. And that's so annoying. It's especially if you're young, because most women aren't going to like you, and it is you. So you have to grow up. But then, you got to understand that if you make yourself competent and productive and generous and a little bit socially skilled and reasonably clean, eventually, you'll fool someone, and then, and then, might take a few years, but generally it happens. So that's the thing, is don't be a fool. Turn yourself into someone who's worth being around, and then develop enough social skills so you advertise yourself genuinely. Because, it's not also useful if you're a man to be competent, productive, and generous, and then so timid and socially unskilled that no one can tell. That's also not helpful. Yeah, so look, if you're a young guy, it's like straighten yourself up, Don't be eating, Cheetos in the basement, covering yourself with orange dust and being bitter about women. It's like, go out there and make yourself useful in some dimension, or rather, and, fortify yourself a bit and have some confidence, and then figure out how to present yourself in a manner commensurate with that, and, get out there in the world so people can see you now and then, and, some poor woman will be desperate enough to give you a shot at some point. Well, the first thing is to decide if that is really what you want.
So what advice can you give to people who are looking to have a strong and meaningful and lasting relationship with someone?
I think that people are having a harder time finding, let's call them more permanent relationships, is because
it's become increasingly easy to have fleeting, casual sexual relationships. I mean, Tinder is a revolution, right? It's a revolution in sexual behavior. You kind of want to tangle your life together with someone, because you have someone to, well, it's like two ropes that are tangled together. It's stronger, especially during times of weakness. And you have two brains instead of one. And that actually turns out to be really helpful when things are complicated. And it builds a solidity into your life and a reality into your life to have someone who's along with you on this very long voyage. And so I think that deepens your life in a way that isn't really possible with fragmentary relationships as a single person. The psychoanalysts used to think that, and we all think this way in some ways, that you're sane because you're well put together. Your psyche is well structured, right? It's internal, somehow inside your head. But, and there's some truth in that, but here's a more accurate viewpoint, I think. You outsource most of your sanity because it's too complicated. And so what you do is your parents raise you to be vaguely acceptable to other people. And then you're surrounded by other people your whole life. And then every time you go off the rails a little bit, even just a little bit, people signal to you. Like you make a joke, it's not that funny and people don't laugh. And you think, oh, well, I should probably rethink my sense of humor a little bit or pay more attention. Or you tell a rambling story and you notice that everyone's like lost in the distance. And so if you're civilized enough so that people don't shun you and you have people around you, then they're going to be always telling you how to not be too insane. Well, if you're alone, you drift. You drift, and you'll drift in the direction of your biggest weakness. And the effort issue is like, well, when you're in love with someone, you're going to organize your schedule and make them a priority. And, that's in some ways a fleeting state, although it's not necessarily as fleeting as people think it is, but whatever. It's obviously a priority. And then you get married and, you kind of get accustomed to having each other around, and then everything else is more important and the relationship drifts to the bottom. And then people get dissatisfied and they start looking for excitement and adventure otherwise. Well, you can't do that. You have to prioritize the relationship. Like my observation clinically has been for a couple to maintain their relationship without it deteriorating, they have to spend 90 minutes a week together talking about their lives, about how the house is run, about what they've all been doing to keep their stories caught up, right?
That's not really even that much.
No, it's not. It's not. It's not that much.
Yeah.
But and which is a good thing. You can actually do it. And then they need to spend at least one time having a date. And 2 is better. 1 is necessary. 2 is better. You can't aim for a lot more than that because, life is very busy. And if it's going to be sustainable, it has to be realistic.